A billionaire walks into his own company at dawn, and his secretary tells him to shut his mouth. What she's recording behind that conference room door will expose the three men he trusts most as thieves planning to steal $200 million. But the real danger, they already know she's watching. Nash Hartwell built his empire from nothing. 50 years old, calloused hands under tailored suits, the kind of man who still remembers what concrete dust tastes like. He doesn't do early morning surprises, doesn't do drama. But at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday that would change everything, he walked into his executive floor mid-phone call and heard three words that stopped him cold. "Will you shut up?" His secretary, Krista Harrison, late 30s, cornrow braids pulled back tight, standing frozen outside the conference room with her phone held up like a weapon. Recording something. She hadn't even turned around to see who she was yelling at. When she did turn, the color drained from her face so fast, Nash thought she might collapse right there on the marble floor. But here's what Nash didn't know yet. Krista had been fighting a silent war for 3 months, documenting, listening, watching his most trusted executives, his CFO, his COO, his chief legal officer, plan the perfect theft. $200 million, gone in 6 hours, clean, untraceable, and now they knew she was onto them. This isn't a story about money. It's about the people we don't see until it's almost too late, about loyalty that costs everything, and about what happens when the person with the least power becomes the only one who can save you. Before we go deeper, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And if this already has you hooked, show some love with a like. Trust me, you'll want to see how far this goes. The elevator doors slid open at 6:47 a.m., and I stepped onto the executive floor with my phone still pressed to my ear. Heinrich was mid-sentence, something about the Berlin permits, when I heard it. "Will you shut up?" The voice cracked through the empty hallway like a whip. I stopped walking. Heinrich kept talking in my ear, oblivious. Down the hall, I could see her, Krista, my secretary, standing just outside the conference room with her back to me. Her spine was rigid, one finger pressed to her lips in the universal sign for silence, the other hand holding her phone up toward the conference room door. She was recording something. "Heinrich, I'll call you back." I ended the call before he could respond. Krista still hadn't turned around. She was frozen there, barely breathing, her entire body focused on whatever was happening behind that frosted glass door. I could see the faint blue glow of her phone screen reflecting off her face. Then she turned. The color drained from her skin so fast I thought she might faint. Her eyes went wide, her mouth opened, and for a second neither of us moved. The phone was still in her hand, still recording. "Mr. Hartwell, I can explain." I looked at her, really looked at her. Krista Harrison had worked for me for 6 years. She showed up before everyone else, left after everyone else, and I couldn't remember the last time she'd taken a sick day. She wore the same rotation of 5 blazers, always pressed, always professional. Her cornrow braids were pulled back in a neat bun today, a few loose strands framing her face. She looked terrified. "Explain," I said quietly. Her hands were shaking. She glanced back at the conference room door, then stepped closer to me, lowering her voice to barely a whisper. "They're in there right now. Ernesto, Donovan, and Leonard. They don't know I'm listening. My CFO, my COO, my chief legal officer, the men who'd helped me build this company from a 3-person operation in a strip mall to a multinational corporation worth billions. What are they talking about? Krista's jaw tightened. She pulled out a wireless earbud from her pocket and handed it to me. Just listen, please. I put it in. She tapped her phone screen, and suddenly I was hearing Ernesto's voice, clear as if he were standing next to me. The transfer needs to happen within 6 hours of the funds hitting the account. No delays. The shell corporation in the Caymans is already set up. The routing numbers are clean, and Leonard's built in the legal redundancies if anyone starts asking questions. Donovan's laugh came through next, smooth and confident. By the time Nash realizes what happened, the money will be untouchable. We've earned this. 20 years of making him richer while we scrape by on salaries. Leonard's voice was colder, clinical. Just make sure there's no trail back to us, no emails, no texts, nothing. I pulled the earbud out. Krista was watching me, her eyes searching my face for a reaction. I didn't have one yet. My mind was still catching up to what I'd just heard. How long have you known? I asked. 3 months, she whispered. I've been documenting everything. 3 months. I stared at her. Why didn't you come to me 3 months ago? Krista's eyes darted back to the conference room. Voices were rising in there now, wrapping up their meeting. She grabbed my arm and pulled me toward my office, moving fast but silent. We slipped inside just as I heard the conference room door open down the hall. She locked the door behind us, pressed her back against it. For a moment, she just stood there, breathing hard, listening. Footsteps passed by. Ernesto's voice, casual and warm. Tell Patricia I'll be home for dinner tonight. Donovan laughed. Family Man of the Year. Their voices faded toward the elevator. Krista finally exhaled. She crossed to my desk and pulled out her phone, fingers flying across the screen. I didn't come to you because I wasn't sure? Not at first. Not sure about what? She looked up at me. Whether you'd believe me, or whether you were in on it. The words hit me like cold water. You thought I was part of this? I didn't know. Her voice was steady now, but I could hear the edge underneath. You're friends with these men, Mr. Hartwell. You vacation with Ernesto's family. Donovan is your son's godfather. Leonard's been your lawyer for 15 years. Why would I assume you'd choose the word of your secretary over theirs? I sat down heavily in my chair. She was right. Of course she was right. Krista pulled up a file on her phone and set it on my desk. It started small. I noticed discrepancies in the quarterly reports. Nothing major, just odd numbers that didn't quite line up. Then I started paying attention, listening, watching. She swiped through the file, screenshots of emails, audio recordings, time-stamped photographs of meetings I didn't know about, a spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and account numbers I'd never seen before. $200 million, she said quietly. That's what they're planning to take. The Hoffman investment clears in 72 hours. The moment it hits your primary account, they're routing it through a shell corporation in the Caymans, then splitting it 3 ways into accounts in Switzerland and Panama. I scrolled through the evidence. It was meticulous, organized, damning. I didn't have words for what this was. They've been planning it for years, Krista continued, since before I even started working here. They've just been waiting for the right opportunity. The Hoffman deal is it, big enough to change their lives, complex enough to hide in the noise. I looked up at her. How did you get all this? A flicker of something crossed her face. Not quite a smile. People don't notice the help, Mr. Hartwell. I'm in every meeting. I handle every email. I organize every file. I'm invisible. That's how. The word invisible hung in the air between us. You're not invisible, I said. She met my eyes. Then prove it. Help me stop them. Stay with me here. If you're feeling this tension build, drop a like and let me know you're invested. This is only the beginning. I spent the next 2 hours locked in my office with Krista, going through everything. Every email, every recording, every breadcrumb she'd collected while the rest of us walked around blind. She'd been working 2 jobs, I realized. The one I paid her for, and the one no one asked her to do, protecting my company from the men I trusted most. Here, she pulled up another file, this one labeled Offshore Infrastructure. Leonard set up the Shell Corporation 18 months ago. It's called Redstone Holdings, LLC, registered in Grand Cayman, but the beneficial owners are hidden behind 3 layers of nominee directors. How do you know it's them? Because I followed the paper trail. She zoomed in on a scanned document. This is the Articles of Incorporation. See that signature at the bottom? That's Leonard's handwriting. I've seen it 1,000 times on contracts. He tried to disguise it, but the capital L and the way he crosses his T's, it's him. I studied the signature. She was right. It was subtle, but it was there. And this. She swiped to another screen. Bank statements from an account in Switzerland. Small deposits over the last year, $50,000 here, $75,000 there. Test runs. They're making sure the routing works before they move the big money. Where did you get bank statements from Switzerland? Krista hesitated. Let's just say Ernesto doesn't log out of his personal email when he leaves for lunch. I sat back in my chair. You hacked into his email? I read emails he left open on a shared computer. She crossed her arms. There's a difference. Krista, don't. Her voice cut through. Don't lecture me about ethics when 3 men are about to rob you blind and walk away clean. I did what I had to do. She was right. Again. I ran my hands through my hair. Okay, so we have evidence. We know what they're planning. What do we do with it? We can't go to the police. Not yet. She started pacing, her blazer catching the morning light coming through the windows. The moment we make a move, they'll know. They'll destroy evidence, move the money early, or worse. They'll flip the narrative and make you look complicit. So what's the play? She stopped pacing and looked at me. We let them think they're winning. We act normal. We let the Hoffman deal proceed. But behind the scenes, we build an airtight case and hand it to the federal prosecutors, not the local police. These guys have local connections. We need someone they can't touch. That's a huge risk. We're talking about letting them get within hours of stealing $200 million. I know. Her eyes were steady, unflinching. But if we move too soon, they'll scatter. We need to catch them in the act. The moment they initiate that transfer, we have them on wire fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, charges they can't wiggle out of. I studied her face. There was something else there, something she wasn't saying. Why are you doing this, Krista? Really? You could have walked away, found another job, stayed out of it. For the first time all morning, she looked away. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Because someone has to give a damn, she said quietly. And apparently, that someone is me. The words landed heavy in the space between us. I wanted to say something, thank her, apologize for not seeing this sooner, tell her that she wasn't alone in this anymore. But before I could, her phone buzzed. She glanced down at the screen. Her face went pale. "What is it?" She turned the phone toward me. It was a text from an unknown number. "I know what you're doing. Stop now, or your family pays the price." The phone slipped from Krista's hand and clattered onto my desk. She didn't pick it up. She just stared at it like it might explode. "Your family," I said slowly. "Who?" "My brother. My father." Her voice came out flat, mechanical. "They know about them." "Krista, what are you talking about?" She finally looked at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Real, bone-deep fear. "I need to go." She grabbed her phone and turned toward the door. "Wait!" I stood up, moving around the desk. "You can't just leave. We need to figure out—" "There's nothing to figure out." She was already unlocking the door. "They threatened my family. I'm done. This is your problem now." "Krista, stop!" She stopped. Didn't turn around. Just stood there with her hand on the doorknob, shoulders tight. "Tell me what's going on," I said quietly. "All of it." Silence stretched between us. Then her shoulders dropped, and I heard her exhale, long and shaky, like she'd been holding her breath for months. "My brother Francesco," she said, still facing the door. "He's sick. Kidney failure. He needs a transplant, but he's not high enough on the donor list, and we can't afford a private match. The hospital bills are already drowning us." I felt something twist in my chest. "How long has this been going on?" 8 months. 8 months? And I'd never known, never asked, never noticed. "My father, Ronald, he worked construction most of his life. Had an accident on site 2 years ago. Fell from scaffolding. Crushed 3 vertebrae. He can't work anymore. Can barely walk most days." Her voice cracked. "I'm it, Mr. Hartwell. I'm the only one holding everything together. If I lose this job, my family loses everything." The weight of what she'd risked, for me, for my company, hit me all at once. She'd been fighting a war on 2 fronts, and I'd been completely oblivious. "Why didn't you tell me?" She finally turned around. Her eyes were red but dry. "Because people like me don't ask people like you for help. We just put our heads down and survive. People like me? Rich, white, powerful." She wasn't being cruel. She was being honest. "You're a good man, Mr. Hartwell. Everyone says so. But good men don't see people like me unless we're useful. And the moment we need something, we become a problem to manage, not a person to help." The words cut deeper than I wanted to admit, because part of me wondered if she was right. "How did they find out?" I asked. "About your family?" "I don't know. Maybe they've been watching me longer than I thought. Maybe they saw me at the hospital. Or maybe—" She glanced at her phone. "Maybe they've been tracking everything I do, just like I've been tracking them." I walked to the window, looking down at the city below. People moving like ants, everyone fighting their own battles, invisible to each other. "Drake," I said suddenly. "What?" "Drake Calloway, head of security. He's the only person in this building I trust, besides you." I pulled out my phone. "If they're threatening your family, we need protection, real protection, Mr. Hartwell, and we're getting your brother the treatment he needs. Today." She stared at me. "What?" "You heard me. I'm calling my personal physician right now. We'll get Francesco evaluated for a private transplant match, and your father, we're getting him the best care available." "I can't afford—" I can. I met her eyes. This isn't charity, Krista. This is me finally paying attention. Krista's face did something I couldn't read. Relief, maybe. Or anger. Or both at the same time, tangled up so tight you couldn't separate them. You can't just... She stopped herself, started again. This isn't how it works. How what works? This. She gestured between us, frustrated. You don't get to swoop in and fix everything because you suddenly feel guilty. My family isn't a problem for you to solve so you can feel better about not noticing. The accusation stung because it was partially true, but only partially. That's not what this is, I said. Then what is it? I didn't have a good answer, not one that wouldn't sound patronizing or self-serving, so I told her the truth instead. I don't know. Maybe it is guilt. Maybe I'm trying to fix something I should have seen months ago. I sat on the edge of my desk. But your brother is dying, Krista, and whether you think I'm doing this for the right reasons or not, he still needs help. So does your father. So do you. Her jaw tightened. I don't need... Yes, you do. My voice came out harder than I intended. You're exhausted. You're broke. You're being threatened by people who have more money and power than you do, and you're standing here telling me you don't need help because you've spent so long carrying everything alone that you've forgotten what it feels like when someone actually shows up. She flinched like I'd hit her. The silence that followed was suffocating. I didn't mean to, I started. No, she held up a hand. You're right. I wasn't expecting that. She walked to the window, arms wrapped around herself like she was holding something in. When my mom died, I was 19. Francesco was 15. Dad was working doubles just to keep us fed. There was no time to grieve, no space to fall apart. You just kept moving. And then Dad got hurt, and Francesco got sick, and I just kept moving, because that's what you do. Krista, people used to offer help at first, she continued, her voice quieter now. Neighbors, church folks, they'd say, let me know if you need anything. But when you actually asked, suddenly they were too busy, had their own problems. So you stop asking, you stop expecting, you just survive. I wanted to say something, but every word felt inadequate. She turned back to me. So when you say you want to help, part of me wants to believe you, but the other part is just waiting for the moment you realize I'm more trouble than I'm worth. That's not going to happen. You don't know that? Yes, I do. I stood up. Because you've spent 3 months protecting me from people I called friends. You've risked your job, your safety, your family. For what? For loyalty to someone who didn't even know you were drowning. If anyone's questioning worth here, it should be you questioning mine. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't let the tears fall. So here's what we're going to do, I said. We're calling Drake. We're getting your family protection. We're getting Francesco treatment. And then we're going to take down Ernesto, Donovan, and Leonard so thoroughly they'll wish they'd never learned your name. Krista studied my face for a long moment. Then finally she nodded. Okay. 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 A ghost of a smile touched her lips. But if you're doing this, you're doing it my way. We play this smart, not emotional. Deal. She pulled out her phone. Then we need to move fast, because if they know I'm watching them, they might move up their timeline. You think you know where this is going? Trust me, you don't. Drop a comment if you're hooked. The betrayal runs deeper than either of them realizes. Drake Calloway arrived at my office 20 minutes later. Ex-military, built like a tank, with the kind of face that made people nervous in elevators. But his eyes were sharp, and more importantly, he was loyal. "You said it was urgent," Drake said, closing the door behind him. I gestured to Krista. "Tell him." She did. Everything. The conspiracy, the recordings, the threat. Drake listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "These men," he finally said, "they have resources?" "Unlimited," Krista replied. "Between the three of them, they control most of the company's operational infrastructure, security access, financial systems, legal protections, all of it." Drake nodded slowly. "So they could have had eyes on you this whole time." "That's what I'm thinking." "And the threat just came this morning?" 20 minutes ago." "Then they're spooked." Drake pulled out his phone. "Which means they're either accelerating their plan or they're about to clean house. Either way, we're running out of time." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean, clean house?" Drake looked at me like I was naive. "Mr. Hartwell, if they're willing to threaten Ms. Harrison's family, they're willing to do worse. People who commit $250 million fraud don't leave loose ends." Krista went pale. "I'm putting a detail on your brother and father immediately," Drake said, already typing. "Round-the-clock protection. Nobody gets near them without going through my people first." "I can't afford—" "It's handled," I cut in. "Drake, what else?" "We need to assume they're monitoring everything. Emails, phones, office surveillance, all compromised." He looked at Krista. "How have you been storing your evidence?" "Cloud storage, personal account, encrypted." "Not good enough. If they've been watching you, they've got your passwords." He pulled out a small device from his pocket, a USB drive. "Transfer everything here, then delete the cloud files. All of them." Krista hesitated. "That's months of work." "If something happens to that drive—" "I'll make copies," Drake said. "Multiple locations, multiple formats. But right now, we need to assume your evidence is the only thing keeping you alive. The moment they think it's destroyed, you become expendable." The word hung in the air like smoke. I felt rage building in my chest. "These are educated men, professionals. You're telling me they'd actually hurt someone?" Drake's expression didn't change. "Sir, with respect, you're talking about people who are about to steal $200 million. They've already crossed every moral line that matters. What's one more?" He was right. I knew he was right. But some part of me still wanted to believe that Ernesto, Donovan, and Leonard, men I'd known for years, wouldn't actually go that far. Then my office phone rang. Internal line. Ernesto's extension. The three of us stared at it. "Don't answer," Krista whispered, but I was already reaching for it. I picked up the phone. Drake and Krista both tensed. "Nash, my friend." Ernesto's voice was warm, casual, the same voice that had toasted at my birthday last month. "Do you have a moment? There's something we need to discuss." "Of course. What's on your mind?" "Not over the phone. Can you come down to the conference room? Donovan and Leonard are already here." My pulse hammered. "Give me 5 minutes." "Perfect. See you soon." The line went dead. Drake was already shaking his head. "Don't go." "I have to. If I don't show, they'll know something's wrong." "They already know something's wrong," Krista said. Her hands were clenched into fists. "That's why they're calling you down there?" "Maybe." I straightened my tie, trying to look calmer than I felt. Or maybe this is just a regular meeting and we're all paranoid. You don't believe that? I didn't, but I also couldn't hide in my office forever. Drake stepped closer. If you're going down there, I'm wiring you. Audio feed straight to my phone. Anything goes sideways, I'm coming in. Do it. He pulled out a small device, barely bigger than a shirt button, and clipped it inside my jacket lapel. Don't touch it. Don't acknowledge it. Just act normal. What about me? Krista asked. You stay here, I said. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but Drake or me. Nash, please. I met her eyes. If this goes bad, you're the only one with the evidence. You're the only one who can finish this. She looked like she wanted to argue, but something in my expression stopped her. She nodded once, tight and reluctant. I left my office and headed for the elevator. My footsteps echoed in the empty hallway. Everyone else was still trickling in for the day, oblivious to the fact that the company was imploding from the inside. The elevator ride down 2 floors felt like falling. When the doors opened, I could see the conference room through the glass walls. Ernesto sat at the head of the table, relaxed, scrolling through his phone. Donovan leaned against the window, coffee in hand. Leonard stood near the door, arms crossed, watching the hallway. Watching for me. I walked in, smiled. "Gentlemen, what's this about?" Leonard closed the door behind me. I heard the lock click. Ernesto set his phone down and smiled back. It didn't reach his eyes. "Nash, thank you for coming. Please, sit." I stayed standing. "I've got a call in 10 minutes. What do you need?" "We need to talk about Krista," Donovan said. His voice had lost its usual charm. It was flat now, cold. "What about her?" Ernesto folded his hands on the table. "She's become a problem, and we need your help fixing it." My blood went cold, but I kept my face neutral. "I don't follow." Leonard smiled. It looked wrong on his face. "Yes, you do." The air in the room shifted, all pretense gone. "Nash, come on." Ernesto leaned back in his chair, still playing friendly. "We've known each other too long for games. Your secretary has been snooping where she doesn't belong, accessing files, recording conversations. We can't have that kind of liability." "Liability?" I repeated, kept my voice even. "That's an interesting word for an employee doing her job." "Her job isn't corporate espionage," Leonard said sharply. Donovan pushed off from the window. "We're asking you, as a courtesy, to let her go. Today. Severance package, non-disclosure agreement, the whole clean break. She walks away, we all move forward." I studied their faces. These men I'd trusted, built something with. Ernesto, who'd helped me close my first major deal. Donovan, who'd been at my wedding. Leonard, who'd drafted my will. "And if I don't?" I asked. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Ernesto's smile faded. "Then we'll have to assume you're part of whatever she's been doing, and that would be unfortunate for everyone." "Unfortunate how?" "Well," Leonard's voice took on a legal precision, "corporate espionage is a serious crime. If evidence emerged suggesting you'd been conspiring with an employee to sabotage your own executives, potentially to cover financial irregularities of your own, the SEC would be very interested. So would the board." My chest tightened. "You're threatening to frame me." "We're explaining consequences," Donovan corrected. "You fire Krista. This all goes away. You protect her, and we protect ourselves. It's that simple. They had it all mapped out, the alternative narrative, the paper trail they'd built to point at me instead of them. Months, maybe years of preparation. Why? The word came out harder than I intended. 20 years. We built this together. Why throw it away for money you don't even need? Ernesto laughed, actually laughed. You really don't see it, do you? We made you rich, Nash. Every deal, every expansion, every decision that turned this company into what it is, that was us. You were just the face, the name on the door. And what did we get? Salaries? Stock options that'll never vest, while you bought your third house and your kids' trust fund. So this is about ego? This is about fairness, Leonard snapped. We earned this. You just inherited the credit. I thought about Krista upstairs, listening through Drake's wire, hearing these men reduce 20 years to simple greed and resentment. You threatened her family, I said quietly. Silence. Then Ernesto shrugged. We're just making sure she understands the stakes. Her brother needs expensive medical care. Her father's disability payments could get complicated if certain information reached the right people. We're simply clarifying her options. Something cold settled in my gut. Not fear, clarity. Here's what I understand, I said. You're planning to steal $200 million from the Hoffman deal. You've built shell corporations, offshore accounts. You've been planning this for years. And now you want me to fire the one person who figured it out. The room went absolutely still. Donovan's hand moved toward his jacket. Leonard stepped toward the door, blocking it. Ernesto's smile disappeared completely. How long have you known? Ernesto asked softly. Long enough. Then you're stupider than I thought. He stood up slowly. Because now you're not just a problem, Nash. You're a loose end. Leonard pulled out his phone. I'm making a call. This conversation is about to get very different. Drake's voice crackled in my earpiece, so quiet only I could hear it. Extraction in 30 seconds. Get ready to move. Leonard's finger hovered over his phone screen. Ernesto circled around the table toward me. Donovan's hand was definitely inside his jacket now. Before you make that call, I said, keeping my voice steady, you should know that this entire conversation has been recorded, and if anything happens to me, Krista, or her family, copies of everything she's collected go straight to the FBI. Ernesto stopped walking. Bluffing. Try me. The door burst open. Drake came through first, followed by 2 of his security team. But they weren't alone. Behind them were 3 people in dark suits with badges clipped to their belts. Federal agents. Leonard's phone clattered to the floor. Donovan's hand froze halfway out of his jacket. Nobody move, one of the agents said, calm and authoritative. Ernesto Rader, Donovan Steele, Leonard Cross. We have warrants for your arrest on charges of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering, and interstate threats. Everything happened fast after that. Hands behind backs, Miranda rights. Ernesto's face going from shock to rage to something that looked almost like disbelief. Donovan kept shaking his head, muttering, "This isn't happening," over and over. Leonard just stared at me with pure hatred. "You destroyed this company," he hissed as they cuffed him. "You realize that? The moment this goes public, everything we built collapses." "No," I said quietly. "Everything I built survives. What you built was just a house of cards. They were led out in a perp walk that would be on every news station by evening. Drake stayed close to me the entire time, hand on my shoulder. When the conference room finally emptied, I exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. "How?" I asked Drake. "The FBI doesn't move this fast. They do when someone's been feeding them evidence for weeks." He gestured toward the hallway. Krista stood there, laptop bag over her shoulder, looking exhausted but steady. "You contacted them?" I said. "When?" "6 weeks ago." She walked into the conference room, taking in the overturned chairs and scattered papers. "I wasn't sure you'd help me when the time came, so I had a backup plan." "You didn't trust me." "I didn't know you." She met my eyes. "Now I do." 3 months later, I stood in a hospital waiting room that smelled like disinfectant and bad coffee. Krista sat next to me, leg bouncing with nervous energy. We'd been there for 7 hours, Francesco's transplant surgery. They'd found a match 4 weeks after Ernesto's arrest. Private donor, perfect compatibility. The surgery was risky, but the alternative was watching him die slowly. So here we were. The door opened. A surgeon in scrubs, mask pulled down, exhaustion written across her face. "He made it through," she said. Krista's hands flew to her mouth. I felt something tight in my chest release. "Recovery will be long," the surgeon continued, "but his body's accepting the kidney. Barring complications, he should have a normal life ahead of him." Krista was crying now, full and ugly and relieved. I put my arm around her shoulders and she collapsed into me, shaking. "Thank you," she whispered into my jacket. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." "You saved my company," I said quietly. "This is the least I could do." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "It's not the least. It's everything." The company survived. Barely. The scandal hit hard. Stock dropped 30% in a week. Investors panicked. The board called emergency meetings. But we stabilized, restructured, brought in new leadership I actually vetted this time. Krista turned down my offer to promote her to CFO, said she didn't want to be an executive. But she did accept a new title, Chief Operating Strategist. Same office floor as me, better pay, and the understanding that if she ever needed anything, for her family, for herself, she only had to ask. Ronald moved into an assisted living facility with actual medical staff and physical therapy. Francesco was going back to school, talking about becoming a nurse. Krista's apartment wasn't in the dangerous neighborhood anymore. And me? I learned to pay attention. To see the people holding everything together while I focused on the big picture. To understand that loyalty isn't something you buy with salary and benefits. It's something you earn by showing up when it matters. 6 months after the arrests, Krista and I were in my office reviewing quarterly reports when she paused, pen hovering over a spreadsheet. "You know what's strange?" she said. "What?" "I spent 3 months terrified they'd destroy me, and in the end, you risked everything to make sure they didn't." I looked at her. "That's not strange. That's just what people do when they finally stop being blind." She smiled. "Took you long enough?" "Yeah," I admitted. "It did." If you stayed through this whole journey, thank you. Real loyalty stories, the messy, complicated kind, need to be told. Subscribe for more, and let me know in the comments what hit hardest for you.